Okay, well, welcome to Mind Shifting Monday with Mitch. I'm Mitch Weisberg, and I'm here with my friend Josh Chernikov. And this time, what we're going to be doing is we're setting the stage for February. We're going to describe what what happened with Monday Mind Shifting with Mitch in January, what our theme is for February, what we're doing with mind shifting, how it's affecting the world. But first, Josh, how are you?
I'm warm. It's 32 degrees. That's warm around here these days in Washington D.C.
Yeah, I'm here in balmy Florida, and it's a actually sweltering 45 degrees for those of you in the US. It's about 6 degrees or 7 degrees for those of you anywhere else in the world
Yes,
in Celsius. And I was telling Josh, we're wearing our ski parkas. We're still walking on the beach. We still went to a tropical zoo, but 70% of the animals aren't out because it's too cold for them.
but they got
But
to see
we're out.
you.
But the 30% of the animals got to see us, and
Yeah,
we got close to them, fed them, got to talk to the rangers who were taking care of them. So we had a blast. We're
that's
with
cool.
we're with a 5-year-old, so he's always excited, and he comes down here every year, so he's like showing us where this animal is and that animal is. So yeah,
That's
yeah, it's
great.
been great. It's been great.
And you guys have the same level of maturity.
And we have the exact same level of maturity. Yep, yep. He says, well, he calls me Baba. So he says, Baba, we're at a restaurant, right? So we're surrounded by other people. He says, Baba, I have something to tell you. Well, okay. He says, Baba, you're a poopy head.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's like right at my
Tell me
level,
something
right?
I don't know,
Right.
kid.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's fun. So just thinking about what we did in January, one of the things that we initiated in January, and I think this is I don't think I know this was your idea, is that we started off 2026 with 31 mind shifting challenges. So we've been doing a mind shifting challenge every day, and well, I thought I'd read the challenge for today, which was this is challenge number 26. So you still have five more to join us on either Substack or LinkedIn. So the challenge for today was find 5 times that you can compliment somebody today. No criticism, no asking for favors, no coaching. Just find 5 opportunities to compliment somebody. And so I'm wondering, like Josh, when you think about today, did you find any opportunities to compliment anybody?
Unfortunately, I have a very similar level of maturity, and I was going to say you're a poopy head.
Thanks.
Um,
That's a
as
compliment. So that counts as one.
Um, I have not. I don't believe, but yes, I have. I have
Okay.
actually. I told Alvin, who helps produce this show, that the work he is doing on our course is really exceptional work, causing me to even think more deeply and differently about the stuff that I have been teaching for years.
Hmm.
And then I will give a big way to go and hug to our daughter Camila, who uh, walked to school today for the third time
In the
uh,
cold, in
in
like
the
below
cold on
freezing.
her own,
Right. Uphill both ways, right?
uphill both ways. The first time she did it, she did a really great job. And we're not helicopter parents whatsoever, but we're in DC and it's not an
Right.
unsafe place, but it's city. So we said, hey, just text us before you put your watch away because you're not allowed to have that stuff out. Just text us. And so she did it the first day. Second day, which was Friday, I think she got a little over her skis and she forgot. She forgot. And so did I, but
Hmm.
my wife didn't. And today she wrote herself a note and she let us know. So I will give her a real good way to go.
Yeah. So I think about it, and I guess even so far today, I've done at least two. I mean, first of all, I credited you with the idea of the 31 challenges, and it was a really good idea. And second of all, At that restaurant where we were having lunch, I complimented my daughter's father-in-law for his bad dad jokes, even worse than mine. And
Wow.
so, like that's really high praise.
So you're saying, so I'm trying to kind of, figure that, so his jokes are worse than yours.
Which
And
makes them better.
that makes them better.
That
Okay.
makes them better,
I
right?
get it. I
Right.
get it. Way to go. Way to go, father-in-law.
Yeah, I mean, so I somebody said something about a tree, and then I said to my grandson, uh, you don't like trees because they bark, right? And so then Jeff then turned to me and said, you really went out on a limb with that. And I thought,
Wow.
okay, he won.
Wow.
Mic drop.
Wow. Okay. True. You've met your match.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
And then so that's my time in Florida. That's the 31 challenges. And then looking at what we did in January, the first session, well, the first session we did was setting the stage, but the first content session was the one where we introduced the Mastering Your Resourceful Brain course, the one that people can sign up for. And let me just put the QR code up up there on the screen. So if anybody wanted to try out a lesson from this course free, they could. We spent 7 months developing this course,
Hmm.
and part of it was understanding the differences between presenting information the way you would in a book versus presenting it in a course where you have video, you can do exercises, you can have artificial intelligence coaches, and then a lot of it was the training of the AI coaches. So we've been really excited about it, and so we have one lesson where you can try out the content. You can see some of the videos, you can try some of the interactions, and you even have a chance to be coached by an AI coach, if just by using this QR code.
Hmm. Wow. How has the 31 days been in terms of adoption? Are you hearing from people? And if you're not, that's no big deal. That doesn't mean that people aren't uh, leveraging it and
hmm
using it. But what's been the feedback?
So we've had a number of people who've used it, who are well, adults, and a number of people who are what we would call college students or university students in most of the world. The adults have gone through it, and basically their their reaction is, "Oh my gosh, now I realize why I was feeling stuck. Now I realize why." Um, when I said certain things, it triggered people,
Mm,
and how I can change so that I pause. I'm aware of when I'm being triggered. I can calm my fight and flight reactions, and then I can choose what I want to do.
mm,
So the reaction from adults has been great. From the university students, it was also really interesting because they gave this to kids who were not doing well academically, with the hope, not with the expectation, but with the hope that when the kids would take the course, they'd learn how to exercise their own um, executive powers, and direct their own learning. And that's been the feedback that we've gotten, is that and I'm calling them kids, but they're 18 to 22 years old.
mhm,
When they were taking the course, they're like, oh my, now I realize when I became discouraged or I was skipping things, that was just my limbic part of the brain.
Gotcha.
And I don't have to do that. And I learned ways of overcoming that, uh, you know, 5 or 6 ways that I know that I can try. And I've even tried them a few times and gotten back on track. So the
Nice.
feedback has been great. It's
Good.
really good.
Nice. That's nice. Very nice.
And then, in your work this past month, okay, maybe have you seen any situations where people were kind of stuck in their limbic brain, their fight, flight, freeze reactions?
Um, Fight, flight, freeze reactions. I've seen it very recently, in a few different ways, as we are wrapping up our latest cohort.
Hmm.
And what I find in as we wrap up our 12-week cohort is that you have a subset of people, and if we have 10 companies, we'll have two of them that have kind of dropped out for whatever reason. Um, and then we have one or two that as you see the end, they will completely shift their course.
Hmm.
And then you have some that are just hard charging. And I think that those ones that are shifting course so late are, although we've done a lot of work, they're not seeing the results that some other folks might be seeing in the cohort. And they say, I gotta shift. Um, and because I'm not seeing the results
Yep.
that I want.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that we all get stuck in those ways, and the more we become aware of it, the more we see it both in others and in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we start learning the techniques in order to get out of it and help others out of it, that's where we start achieving more and also being happier.
Yeah, it's interesting in coaching, and I'm trying to find my way through this. And I told that particular person,
Hmm.
uh, I, I I think this is what you're doing, and so I really encourage you to stick with what we've been doing because you've gone this far.
Hmm.
So, and that's tough to deliver that news to somebody, but I think it's my job.
Right.
And so we'll see if he comes back tomorrow with I've gone back to what we were working on, or I'm sticking with my new plan here.
Hmm. And you can use some of the tools, because I know you're familiar with mind shifting, like maybe like something like how do you make the next step easy, or what do you think it's going to be like when you ultimately succeed. But one of the many different techniques to help people overcome that feeling of being stuck.
Yeah. Thank you.
So then the second session that we did was on finding your empathic power, and in both the books and in the courses, we talk about the brain, which is the resourceful parts of the mind, and empathy is one of the big powers of the sage mind. And we talked about how do you recognize when you're not being empathetic, and how when you're empathetic, very often you're mimicking what the other person is doing, and if the other person starts attacking you, your own empathic powers start mimicking that, and you start attacking them back. But how you pull that back, and then a number of ways of asking questions to promote empathy, and that was the second of the sessions.
And empathy is a challenging one. We tried to work on it with our daughter actually for a while because she's an only child. She's quite the leader, and so empathy is something we talk about a lot in this house. And something I've wrestled with
Hmm.
is this idea of empathy versus something you talked about. I think politeness.
Right.
You have these. What's the difference between the two? I've got to figure that out for my own coaching. So, what's the difference between being polite and being empathetic?
Well, I think so. You can be polite and have it be good, but you can be polite and have it be bad also. So polite could be on the kind of the bad side, and we talk about this in depth in that session. But on the bad side, being polite could be you're over pleasing. You're so intent on pleasing the other side that you're reacting from fear. If I don't do this, they're not going to respect me. If I don't do this, they're not going to like me.
Hmm.
Or the other side of polite is also, it's also fear based, but instead of the of the hyper pleaser, it's the fear of doing something. It's like, if I don't say anything, then nothing, then I'm not going to make the situation worse.
Hmm.
And empathy, when it's really coming from the heart, isn't that. Empathy from the heart is, first of all, establishing a connection, and then staying in empathy to move things forward. And you might need to move things forward by telling somebody something that they don't like, but you can do that in a way that they can respect and that doesn't throw them off. And we again, in that session, we talked about quite a few different techniques. And I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put also on the screen now a second QR code. Is that if you're interested in any of these past sessions, you can go to that QR code and you can watch any of the sessions that we've had from the point that we began
Great.
mind shifting with
Yeah,
me.
these lessons never seem to get old.
No, no, and the interesting thing to me is, every time I read, and I wrote it, right, but every time I reread one of the chapters in the book, it's like, oh, yes, that's right. Here's something else, and it's,
Hmm.
even for me, or I catch myself doing something, and it's like, darn, but I said in the book that I should be doing this,
Yeah,
and then I recover from it. Don't beat myself up for it.
definitely.
And then the third session in January was on learning to listen without an agenda. And that's something that almost everybody has trouble with. Uh, we hear the phrase, the opposite of speaking isn't listening. The opposite of speaking is waiting. And very often, when we're in a conversation, what we're doing is we're waiting for the other person to stop so that we can say our point instead
Right.
of really listening. And so, how do you get yourself to where you're using, again, the empathy from the previous session, but where you're really listening to the other person, so that the two of you could move forward on something, or you're giving them what they really need.
It is tough. It's
But
tough.
you do it all the time, right, with your clients. It's like, because you have to listen to them, and you have to really understand where they're coming from, right? How do you do it?
Um, I do it and I teach it, and I have recently been seeing it on screen for me. I'm late to the game on this, but I've been watching, because it's on Netflix. I am watching West Wing for the first time.
For the first time? Wow.
Yeah. So imagine, you can believe that my Washington D.C. excitement is through the roof right now, watching that show. But President Bartlett, really seems to listen very well, and so I believe that he is a really wonderful example of a leader and a listener, um, and one that, one thing he said is, somebody said, a pastor
Hmm.
that, came down from New England to talk to him, who he'd known for many years, said, when he walked into the Oval Office, he said, do I call you president, or do I call you Jed? And he said, well, I appreciate in this office if you call me Mr. President, because um, then I can be Jed outside,
Yep. Yeah.
and
And that's saying something with empathy.
yeah,
It's like, you're not negotiating, you're not um you're not avoiding, you're not accommodating. You're saying something the way you want it to happen. You're basically using that compete style that we've talked about before, but you're doing it from a standpoint of empathy, not a standpoint of fear or anger
or authority.
or authority. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And so I think he's a really great example of somebody who listens and leads very well at the same time.
So there's an interesting comment, while we're on empathy, from a LinkedIn user. And unfortunately, it's not showing us the name, but whoever you are, thank you. And it says, sociopaths can be polite and manipulative. So
Hmm.
I have thoughts on that, but I'm going to hand it over to you first. As you hear that, what's going through your mind.
Yes, I that is true, and I think we all have people in our lives who are polite and are able to manipulate us.
And so one of the things that goes through my mind is that a lot of the book, mind shifting, conflict and collaboration, is how you recognize where the other person is coming from, and recognizing that the other person is coming from a position of manipulative then helps you, as long as you are resourceful, come up with the way you're going to approach it. Because when you're dealing, one thing, it's not just one, because one thing is that when the other person is sociopathic, or I forgot, the narcissistic or manipulative, they're not concerned at all with what you want. They're concerned with, what do I have to say to get what I want, period.
Mhm.
And so when you walk into a situation and you're trying to be collaborative, they're treating that as a sign of weakness. And you can't be collaborative with initially with a sociopath. Now you might be able to show power, and through power, through being using the compete style, you might be able to then get them to back off, and you might be able to become collaborative. But a lot of working with other people in order to move forward is to understand what the different styles are, what styles you're using, how do you stay in resourceful mode, how do you recognize what style they're coming from, and what methods are effective with that style. So I think that was a great comment.
That makes a lot
And
of
then there's
sense. The opposite of sociopath is our dear friend Robert Martellacci, who I like to call the lighthouse, who's listening and or
Mhm.
had to run. I like to think of him as the lighthouse, and he would certainly have a lot to say about politeness and being manipulative.
Well, he's from Canada. Of course he's
Yeah, I
polite.
know. I know.
Like, if you're from the United States, if you were from New York, forget about it, right? But
Yeah,
he's
it's a
from Canada,
fugazi.
so we know he's polite,
Yeah. If you're from New York, it's a fugazi. But
right?
if you're from Canada, it's in your blood. And David Shea, of course. So we've got some wonderful people chiming in here.
Um, so David is asking, how often are we polite because we know it's the right thing to be, but we don't try to understand what or why the other side are feeling. And I would say mind shifting is all about un, you know, understanding the ways in order to move forward with other people to encounter to accomplish joint goals that benefit both parties. And
Yep.
so once you learn the techniques, you naturally start being polite as part of empathy, to connect with the other person, with the idea that together you're going to move forward, and you're going to do something, which is really what's made the human race the alpha species on the planet, right?
Hmm. Makes sense. So what does February look like for you? Because
So
that was
yeah,
a packed
yeah.
January, and February is a smaller month.
Well, we still have 3 sessions left in February, so I'm thinking maybe we should just close down because January was so good. But
It was.
I can't, because I've already promised things to certain people.
Yeah.
Uh, the the I guess next Tuesday, which is
February
well,
9th.
it's February 9th. Actually, I'm thinking first. Sorry, the theme for February is agency, maintaining and establishing your agency.
Hmm.
And the reason we picked that theme is, as we look at really the world today in the United States and the people that we know, so many people are feeling either stuck or angry or anxious or fearful. You get people in their 20s and 30s, and they're looking around like, when am I going to be able to afford a house? When am I going to be able to have a family? Am I going to have to reduce the size of my family? Reduce the size that I'm expecting to have in a family. Can I Can I afford to get married? You have people in their 30s and 40s who are tied down with student debt and maybe even losing jobs and looking like, how am I gonna move forward? How am I going to live?
Hmm.
And then you look at the political situation, and you have people who are so angry with everything that Trump is doing, and then you have people who are so angry with everything that liberal people are doing, and so they just get in arms at the other side, and then they become stuck. So none of those things are real agency. Agency is when you take a look at a situation and you use that situation as feedback, come up with different things that you could possibly do, and then move forward with whatever things you need to do in order to advance uh, whatever is in your long term values, your long term interest. And
Hmm.
so that's going to be the theme of January.
Agency.
Agency. Uh, and then the first session, which is next Tuesday, January 9th, or sorry, February 9th, is going to be a session with Paula Washington. Paula she is the fourth generation female leader in her family.
Hmm.
And so you think about her great grandmother I think she was probably the first black woman, and I can't remember where she graduated from, but she was the first black woman to graduate from that college.
Wow.
And that's been carried forward for each one of the generations. And and she's going to be talking, or we're going to be talking about, when you have all these things that external factors that are holding you back, how do you lead anyhow? How do you become resourceful? And she coaches people around the country on how they can maintain their sense of agency. I think that's going to be a fascinating conversation, and that's next Tuesday.
Nice.
So you see people who are like running businesses, who are leading, who are so afraid of failure that they end up causing the failure. Maybe you can describe a situation that you see there.
When we kind of did our pre-interview, honestly, um, the first person that came to mind was our daughter. Because I think she was a little too cocky.
Hmm.
I'll remember to let them know I got to school, and then she just kind of screwed the whole thing up.
Yep.
And the way I handled it the way we handled it as parents was, well, we knew something was going to happen. At
Hmm.
some point this was going to happen, and so it just happened very early on, and so can't happen again. But what are you going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Are you going to write a note, or how are we going to handle it? And she took that to heart, and she wrote a nice note for herself and carried it to school. And again, we're not tracking her. We're not interested in staying on top of her, but she messed that one up, and that's okay. She has to mess up.
And what you did is you focused her on what she does next, not on beating herself up or you beating her up for what happened in the past. And that's one of the key aspects of maintaining your agency. So, what a wonderful example of parenting. That must have been your wife, right?
Actually,
There's my third compliment. Okay.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. So nice of you to say. Um, you know, my parents. I was a happy kid, but I certainly got into my fair share of trouble.
Hmm.
And my thing with them, and I always encourage Camila the same way. And so do my wife didn't get in any trouble. She was a great kid.
Hmm.
Was if you make a mistake, just own up to it. You crash the car, you walk up. You can't drive up. You walk up and you say, "Hey, I crashed the car. Can we get to the punishment phase of this?"
Yep.
And I have encouraged her, and that's always worked well with me. Like Mitch, like when you and I have been working together for a while, and you are one of my clients, and sometimes we don't do everything right. And I'll pick up the phone and say, hey, this isn't right, and so we'll make it right, but this is what happened. So I think the way to do things like that in life is just to get ahead of them.
Hmm.
That seems right to me.
So then that kind of leads into also the next topic, which is February 16th, which is, which will deal with what do you do, or how do you work on yourself when nothing seems to be working? Because when things stop working, we tend to go to blame mode, right?
Mm,
It's my fault, or it's everybody else's fault, or it's the situation's fault. I don't think I can do this, and we get judgmental, and that takes us out of being resourceful. So this is going
mm,
to be on, how do you prepare so that even when things aren't going well, you can be resourceful and maintain your agency. And then I'm looking at the time, and officially we should be over, but I do want to cover the February 23rd one. The February 23rd mind shifting Monday with Mitch is going to be on the two biggest errors in decision making, and how we avoid those errors in order to make decisions about what we're going to do, what other people should do, that actually move us forward, rather than decisions that we're going to regret later on.
don't give them away. This is Mitch. I have a master's degree in this, in journalism and broadcast journalism. So this is a tease. Okay,
Okay.
so I want to make sure you don't give the two biggest errors away, but you can give them a little information, like a
Uh,
hint.
I will say that the stage of decision.
How about that? Of all the things to happen, that this might be the world's greatest tease. Oh, I thought you left. I
I
thought
think I'm
you
back. Right.
the world's
That,
greatest tease in the
that
world. He's just
wouldn't that
cut out.
wouldn't that have been perfect? And I blew it by coming back on. So
Yeah,
somehow or
not at
other I
all.
lost connection, but I'm back. But I will say that, one of the important things in decision making is the way you analyze different options that you can do before you choose what you can do. And so the errors are in the way you analyze
Hmm.
and synthesize the different things that you could possibly do. And we'll
Interesting.
go through the two biggest errors and how to avoid them at the end of February.
Seems like a big month.
So it should be a great month, right? And not to mention Valentine's Day is during the month, and it's Black History Month, and all the other things that are happening in free.
I think
And
that you're.
uh,
I think Mitch's internet down in Sarasota, Florida, is telling him to go out into the beautiful air, the beautiful Florida air, and be with his family.
okay,
So I will.
okay, I think I'm back. I think I'm back. I
Okay.
missed. I so you know something. It's telling us we should end,
It
right?
is.
Okay.
You know
All
what's
right.
saying,
So
Mitch? Don't
everybody,
be a poopy head. Be done. That's it.
we're done. See you all next Monday.
See you, poopy head.